Hello NQ Jazz fans, hope you're keeping well and safe and healthy. Welcome to the NQ Jazz podcast, this week featuring my interview with the fantastic violinist and singer Dom Ingham. He's joining us in place of what would have been a fantastic gig at the Whiskey Jar. We're very sad to be missing him, of course. We'll have him back as soon as we can, and we're discussing his upcoming album release out on the 12th of June called Role Model, so please keep your eyes peeled for that. The music is sounding fantastic, as you will hear later on, so please sit back and enjoy the interview with Dom Ingham. Lovely. Well, hello and welcome to the NQ Jazz podcast, Dom Ingham. Very, very great pleasure to have you here. How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, thanks.
Yeah,
I'm up here in Wakefield.
Yeah. God's own town.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
how are you finding lockdown life? Are you enjoying being back out at the rat race for a while, or are you itching to be doing things?
Well, it's been quite nice to take a break and to sort of slow down a bit. I think generally I tend to rush everyday things and not necessarily projects. Just my being is quite
full of suppressed energy. You just need to keep doing.
So I think it's good to have time to do things slowly and to do them properly and thoughtfully.
Great. Yeah.
That sort of goes in with the beard as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking that through doing all of these NQ Jazz podcasts, each one will be like a week later into not being able to have a haircut. And by by the end of summer, I'm going to look like the Thing, or
all right,
whatever the name is from the Addams Family, who just has hair right across his face. So,
yeah. Who's that guy again?
Yeah. I think he used to play the saxophone. I'm not sure what he does anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel you. But the beard's looking good.
Yeah, it's quite fun actually, because I've never given it time. I always thought it would look rubbish because it had done at the earlier stages. So I'd always shave it, but yeah.
You're embracing your inner facial hair now, or your outer facial hair.
Yeah.
Your inner facial hair would cause a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Our audiences will know you from coming and playing at the Whiskey Jar with Bonsai and Elftet, I think are the two projects you've been up with. You haven't been up with anything else yet, have you? I think they're the...
No, they're the only ones.
So, and obviously you play violin in both, but you sing a lot in Bonsai, and you're also doing a bit more singing as time goes on in Elftet as well. Is that right?
Yeah, doing a bit more with Elftet. Bonsai sort of half and half, getting towards more singing actually.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Which it's a good experience for me, because that's something that came a little later.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I was going to ask how you ended up going from presumably starting on violin in other genres and other musical settings, and then, obviously it's an instrument that's maybe most commonly associated with classical music, a lot with folk music, a bit less so with jazz, but then within the jazz world, very heavily in the sort of gypsy jazz thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of baggage musically that comes with playing the violin in a jazz setting. Not negative baggage necessarily, but people have associations in their head. And so, first of all, how did you end up getting into improvised music on violin, and how have you ended up where you are with it now? What's been the path?
Well, both my parents play saxophone.
Yes.
And yeah, you'll be pleased to hear.
Well, I know I've met your dad before in saxophone related activity. Yeah.
Brilliant. So I guess I've been listening to jazz for a long time, and folk music as well. My dad was really into folk. My first violin teacher was Irish as well, so we'd sort of do bits and bobs. Initially, what made me want to play the violin was seeing a folk gig. So that seems to have stayed strong within me, and it's always been a part of what I'll do. It's been a part of what I've done, and I sort of got onto doing jazz in sixth form when I was at Chetham's in Manchester.
Yeah.
And it's funny actually because in my audition, I auditioned for classical violin, but did sort of second study jazz, and the head of strings, Nick Jones, after he heard the jazz piano piece, he said, "Oh, have you ever thought about putting any of that into your violin playing?" And I was like, "Are you joking?" that would sound terrible. Because I hadn't really been exposed to jazz violin. I just didn't think it would work. In my mind, the jazz that I enjoy, because I'd already been listening to a lot of jazz with my parents and my brother Rory. So yeah, there were two separate things. Like I wanted to go off and be this classical violinist, but in my spare time, I enjoyed listening to jazz.
Who else was doing jazz at Chetham's at the time you were there? Who were your jazz peers?
Well, I was put in a room with Joe Hill, who's an amazing piano player. So we'd be listening pretty much non-stop. He brought a record player in, which was quite nice. So it made the listening experience a bit more authentic or special or whatever.
It feels like a social act then. There's a bit of circumstance and occasion around it rather than just spot.
Yeah. Even if it was to the detriment of falling asleep in the lesson in the morning. After staying up all night listening. No.
Worthwhile sacrifices.
Yeah, absolutely. There was also Johnny Mansfield. Mm-hmm. I'd met him a couple of years before in National Youth Orchestra. But we sort of became closer at school. Mm-hmm. Playing a lot together. And then there was also Sam Knight, a saxophone player. There was that was just in my year, but there's my brother, of course, who was it was quite nice that he joined in my final year.
Cool. So you had a good cohort going on.
Yeah, I have fond memories.
Happy days. After that, what happened? How did you end up moving on from there?
I was having lessons with Ian Dixon, which were amazing. That's probably the main thing that got me going. And then I auditioned for Guildhall and went to Guildhall. But the teachers at the jazz teachers at Chet's, Ian, Les Chisnell, Steve Berry, all so helpful and so inspiring.
It's a beautiful bunch of people there.
And what I remember liking at the time, the fact that they were talking about life as well as music and jazz, and that was really, I don't know, I liked that a lot at the time.
Yeah. And then who did you study with at Guildhall?
A mixture of people. I started off with Stuart Hall. That was cool. Had Chris Garrick for a few lessons. Towards the end of Guildhall, I was having some lessons with James Madron.
Oh, great! Yeah,
which were probably some of the best lessons that I'd had, and that led me on to asking him to produce the album.
Great. We'll get to all of that in due course. Fantastic. So I also wanted to ask, there's a few other projects that you've got in your official. That is a fantastically sized mug.
Yeah. I thought you'd say something. I wasn't sure how long we'd be on it, so I tried to get the biggest cup of tea I could. see how long it would stay hot for.
Good move. So on your official bio, you've got Camilla Metzer in the Nectar Orchestra. I'm probably mispronouncing her name.
Yes,
I am mispronouncing her name.
Oh, no.
Yes, you are.
No, just saying that's in the bio. And that was,
so she's based in New York. So how did that all come about?
So she came over with a band a few years ago, and they needed a string quartet. For it was sort of a function gig, really. It was at King's College, and it was for I think it was for a lawyers' convention or something, but like a pretty highbrow thing. And so somehow I got to be in the string quartet that was doing that, and it was probably it was one of the best musical experiences for me. Even though I was sat in a string quartet, like I wasn't really improvising, but I was surrounded by people that were. So the drummer was Offrey Naima. Maybe I haven't pronounced his last name right, but he plays with Shy Maestro a lot. I was in awe of the players and how sort of seriously they were taking the music, and the fact that Camilla had written the music and the way she was performing it and embracing it. It was. It made me want to do that, basically.
Yeah, amazing, fantastic. And the other thing that you have on your website that I wanted to ask about seems like a curveball, which is, and I'm definitely going to mispronounce this one, Blaenavon.
Yeah, that was just a one-off thing at Heaven. They just needed some strings for.
I thought you might be going off and joining an indie band and touring.
No, although that happens to be a dream of mine to be in an indie band. I'm a huge fan of the band Bombay Bicycle Club, and they'll remain one of my favorite bands, I think.
So this is prime time to put the wheels in motion. You could write a whole set of of your indie dream music and get ready for touring.
Yeah. I better get cracking.
Exactly. Yeah. A bit longer, write really beautiful stuff and get out on the road. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And so, jumping back then into the world of jazz, how have you found? Well, I suppose are Bonsai and Elftet your primary? I suppose Bonsai being maybe a bit more active just because it's a smaller group and a bit more able to gig more regularly. But are they your two main jazz creative projects that you're involved in? Aside from your own music, that is,
Yeah. There's obviously other projects that I'm sort of in and out of. Johnny Ford has a band that I was playing in and having a really good time doing that. So I guess just playing, and that, for example, I was singing and playing, and that was a nice opportunity to do both.
Yeah, so I suppose because there's obviously Alice Savadsky is another singing and playing violinist.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I think that's my entire set of singing and violinist pairings that I can think of.
Yeah, it does seem though that string players that I've met do sort of get into singing, whether they do it professionally or not. I think there's something about learning a string instrument that allows you to, I don't know, maybe pitch things better. I learned through the Suzuki method, which sort of develops the ear first, and then you learn to read a bit later. So I think it was easier. I don't know, to sort of open my mouth. It initially happened when I had an injury a few years back, playing related. It was my own fault, really, because I'd sort of stopped the classical lessons, and my posture had got really bad, and I sort of, you know, sitting on my bed, sort of practicing like this, transcribing, like going to press play and stop and like all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of did my arms in a little bit, and they're still, well, it's been an ongoing thing. But when I initially wasn't able to play for 6 months at Guildhall, I would just sort of sing instead, which was nice that I could do something else as opposed to stop completely.
Yeah.
So I was enjoying improvising using the voice as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
I found that came quite naturally, which is it's nice.
It's a nice thing to find out compared to, oh, I'm actually really dreadful at singing and I should never do this again in the 6 months.
Right.
So that's a big positive. Yeah. And so I suppose most people, I think, find their way into jazz via being inspired by someone who plays your own instrument. A lot of the time, a lot of sax players, they've got a few sax player heroes, et cetera, et cetera. But I suppose with maybe a smaller pool of musicians to choose from, do you actually end up listening, or have you listened to much jazz violin, or have you always tried to find an inspiration and influence elsewhere?
Well, I'd sort of said at the beginning that I wasn't a fan of many jazz violinists. Maybe that was me being stubborn. But I think early on I got into Didier Lockwood, who was sort of the only thing that I could relate to at the time. And I could see a path for myself because of what he was doing. So that was nice. So I guess I'd started to develop my playing around what he was doing. Yeah, I guess even though there were lots of I was mainly listening to saxophone players and still do.
Good choice.
But even listening to him for a short amount of time, I think that would have done a lot for me. Just hearing someone doing that on your instrument.
That's it. Otherwise, it becomes a slight thing of trying to create even the whole framework for articulation and tone, even just on an island, rather than trying to tap into something that already exists and has done a lot of the work for you.
Yeah.
Bonsai, I'd say, is well, has been doing exceptionally well. Obviously, you joined the band at the time of the name change, because obviously the band had been running before as Jam Experiment with Alex Bone, and then when you joined the band and Alex left, that was when everything changed over to Bonsai and had a sort of new identity and all of that. How have you enjoyed being part of Bonsai? How much is that a collaborative project, and how much of that is led by maybe one person more than the rest, and how much say do you have in what the band is doing?
In terms of the music that's been written, Johnny's had quite a big influence on us all, I think. Well, just because it seems, as a composer, he's able to state his ideas clearly and create a piece that's where everyone has an obvious role.
Okay.
And so I think a lot of what we've ended up playing has come from him bringing some compositions and us realizing, oh, this is the sort of sound that we want.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've written pieces off the back of that, and we all have, really. Then I sort of got into that more of an indie rock vibe, as I was saying earlier. Yeah. And that's sort of bringing the voice in as well. So yeah, it's the music has changed quite rapidly, I guess, from when we first started. But we're all writing. Rory, my brother, does a lot of the organisation, and we're all very grateful for that. He's got serious chops.
It's the one area of being your own small business that most musicians really fall down on, is being able to organize the business side of it and put all the time into that. So it's really nice when there's one person who's willing to take the burden for everyone else.
Yeah. Well, I think he enjoys doing it as well. He's been doing it since he was like 13, with sort of getting gigs at the local church, and
Great.
He's going around like posting flyers and stuff. And
he's been hustling since.
Yeah. 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 There's actually a funny story of when we were both younger. We sort of wanted to go to football games. I wanted to go to Manchester United. He wanted to go to Liverpool.
Oh wow. This sounds like a recipe for disaster in
yeah. And so, but he was finding it really hard to sort of get in touch. But he just kept on persisting, like trying to find a way of like either becoming a member of the football club, or because you had to be a member before you got a ticket. And he would just like always be on the phone, and got confused when there was, because he was like 9 or something, got confused when there was an automated message. He's like, "Oh, Dad, they're not listening. But yeah, he's never taken no for an answer.
Yeah. I'm sort of imagining him on the phone as a 9-year-old, just looking identical to how he does now, with all the same mannerisms, just a bit smaller and still just like,
Yeah. Wearing a suit as well.
Exactly, yeah. So the first track you've picked out for us today is a Bonsai track, but those who will already know the band will notice that there's an extra musician lurking in the back corner, because you're joined for this track by Bos Martin Jones and frees Johnny up onto Vibe. So this is from your album launch for Bonsai Club at the Pizza Express. How come Bos was jumping on kit for a few tunes?
We just thought it'd be nice to change things up a little, just to feature a guest, and we thought he would be the perfect person to do that.
Yeah. So you're doing an album launch for an album with Johnny on kit, and decide this is the one time when we're launching this album to not have him on kit.
No. No, he's great. It was just we also wanted to take advantage of the fact that he plays vibes. So yeah, I think it worked well, and it sort of, because we did it at the last piece of each half. It sort of, the vibe sort of was a bit stronger, and the crowd reacted to that well. And
great. So this is BMJC. By any chance, does that stand for the Bos Martin Jones Club? Or
Sure, I don't actually know what it stands for, but we can call it that.
Great. So
it's written by Johnny.
Great. So this is BMJC from Bonsai's album launch gig. Enjoy. But great. So that was BMJC by Bonsai from their album launch. So tell us a bit about the new quintet. So you would have been coming up to the Whiskey Jar playing with your group with Johnny Mansfield on vibes, David Swan on piano, Will Sash on bass, Bos Martin Jones on drums. And you've got an album that was due to be coming out last month, I think, but now is coming out in June. Is that correct?
Yep, June the 12th.
Fantastic. We have a strong date. So, available for pre-order, of course, via the website.
Yep.
What's your website? DominicIngham.com or
.com, yeah.
there we go. Beautiful.
Well, DominicIngham.dom. That's the most.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that exists somewhere. So
Yeah.
.dom domains, but yeah. So please go and check that out. Yeah, role models. That's the name of the album. What has inspired you with all the music here, right from why these people in your band, why are you doing your own self-led project now at this point, and what's been the whole process?
Well, it was the Camilla Meza band that I was talking about earlier that initially inspired me to do it.
Great.
Yeah, and around that time, Boz had sort of introduced me to musicians I hadn't heard of, like Ambrose Akinmusa, and I'd sort of really got a lot into him and also into Walter Smith, who he plays with. So I just found myself going into this ocean of musicians that I didn't know about, and going from band to band, finding the players that were similar. And yeah, I guess that whole scene, I was just learning a lot, listening to a lot.
I've just got a quick story about Ambrose that I think you'd enjoy, especially as a northerner.
Right.
Have you played at Wigan Jazz Festival before?
No, but I think I might have heard something about this, but carry on.
Yeah, sorry. Ian Darrington, who runs it, he knows his audience really well, and he gets a lot of exactly what they want every year. But he likes to book one act every year that's a bit of a curveball. I went to see the Abishai Cohen trio there years ago with Shai Maestro and Mark Giuliano, and it was like one of the most stunning gigs I've ever seen. And I think there was loads of people in. I think 3 people enjoyed it. Right. That's the stick there. And so obviously Ambrose comes with his band with Walter Smith and all of this, and a few friends of mine from Manchester went across to watch it. I couldn't go. But there was one tune where Ambrose just plays one note. He just circular breathes one note for ages. And, the whole band intensity just, ramps up, and it's, this really profound experience to watch live in particular. And, and a friend of mine, Graham South, who's a great trumpet player, and Johnny Hunter, drummer, both coming out, and they were chatting to each other, going, phenomenal gig, raving about it. And some old person just walked past, and he could just say, "Oh, well, bloody rubbish! You only played one note in that tune." Absolutely everything else had just sailed straight over the
Right. You've got to have that there.
Yeah.
You've got to have people like that. It's just, yeah.
You can imagine it all too well, but
yeah.
Anyway, so do carry on. But I thought you'd enjoy that.
Yeah. So he's. I went to see him in The Hague.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, I went on a little trip. To see. I went to see him, and then I saw Melissa Aldana.
Amazing.
Lund in that band as well. But seeing Ambrose, I'm glad that I saw him before all this sort of happened, because it was just one of the most amazing experiences, and I can reflect on that and think about what I want to. One of the things that struck me was that there's all of his tunes are absolutely his tunes, if you know what I mean. Like they're unmistakably his, compositions.
Yeah.
He has his own. So he has such a strong style.
Yeah.
But I guess you can't force that. But that was something that I've been thinking about, and also is playing. It seemed so the way that he would sort of he'd not be playing, he'd be standing around the back and then walk up to the microphone and just like absolutely something that he was needed to get out. It seemed sort of is instinctive the word that I'm looking for? Is if anything was there, he'd just let it out. It seemed so natural.
Yeah.
And I could sort of I remembered there was a few times that has happened to me, and I sort of thought, well, I'd like to get in that space more often.
Yeah.
When I'm playing, to try and just get whatever needs to come out.
There's you've inadvertently reminded me of another thing from the Wigan Jazz Festival.
Right.
Not to make light of the point that you just made, which is a really serious thing, but from that Avishai Cohen trio gig. Avishai, the bass player, obviously, rather than the trumpet, Avishai Cohen. He's a very tall, like imposing, serious faced figure, and he's there in this room full of all these people who are a bit bewildered by his music, and they play a few tunes, and he picked up the mic, and saying, performing for an audience is an act of trust. We build a relationship. You trust us, and we trust you. And he went on at like quite great length in this really serious, intense thing about, the emotional bonding that has to take place and the openness to receive everything he was. And, eventually we become friends and we trust each other. And as your friend, I say to you, never fly EasyJet. And then just like started, they'd like lost half their baggage on the way over us. And then he just went on and he built up this whole really intense, serious thing. And I think that was the one point in the gig that all the Wiganers really enjoyed.
Right.
I got that. Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Get him back. Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Didn't understand anything they did, but I liked his EasyJet story.
Yeah, that's funny you should say that, because also I remember thinking before I went to this Ambrose gig, oh, is this obviously he's this really serious musician, and I expected it to be all very serious but amazing, and I was surprised at how many laughs and smiles there were during the gig. Well, obviously when it was happening, I was like, of course, like that, of course they would do that. They love making music, and but because all of his music is so profound, and I just had him as this really serious guy.
Yeah, I think same with Walter Smith. His music, I think, comes across very seriously, and there's a lot of intensity in a lot of his playing and all of this, and incredible. But he's obviously quite a bit of a comedian. I don't know if you have seen his Twitter feed at all.
Yeah.
His practice diaries are absolutely brilliant.
Right. Yeah. The hotel lessons.
Yeah, but there was a whole string he did a few years ago, even, that were just like, he'd just have, in the shed, and it'd just be a clip of him playing a long note for 20 seconds. Everyone else's practice clips, absolutely burning around the instrument, and he'd just always be playing a long tone.
Yeah.
But so anyway, sorry, to get back to what you were saying. So you'd found the personnel that sort of resonated with you musically, and from there, then did you just decide, now is the time, I want to start getting my own project together and doing a tour, or recording an album and all of that? Or how long has the whole thing been brewing? When did you write all of this music?
So if we recorded last May, I started writing in maybe the summer before that, or September. It takes me longer to write than some people. Yeah, so I'd write sort of half the material, then we'd rehearse that, and then I'd write the next half. Yeah, but the guys in the band, we'd sort of been playing from when the beginning of college, really. So I've been playing with them for a while, and it seemed natural to have them there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many gigs has the band done up to this point?
Not many, actually.
Well, no, that's just what I was thinking. I think it feels like quite a fresh project in that sense, you know, because obviously this was going to be the first sort of major tour. How many dates did you have on the tour for this? Obviously, I know it's heartbreaking to think about it all not happening. But...
we had 14 dates.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's a really substantial tour. That's great to have gotten together, you know.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to it.
But you know, it will happen again for sure. Just slightly later than hoped. But
yeah, but it's good to know. Yeah, it's good to know that now. Well, now I have that relationship with the clubs and
exactly
yourself, and yeah, it's now a little bit easier to organize things.
I mean, for a debut tour under your own name to get 14 dates is that's a big seal of approval on the music as well as everything else, you know. So you should definitely take that as a huge positive.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had help. It wasn't just me sat in my room for a month sorting it out.
Was that a bit of Rory's organisational help?
Oh yeah. Rory and Johnny were all both very helpful in the process. Yeah, and I've learned a lot about that. Yeah, because I guess the business side is just as well. It's vital. Otherwise, you're not going to share your music.
I can't remember who it was whoever told me this, but it's always rung really true for me, which is there's like 3 main areas of skills you need as a musician to make a career. One of which is, you know, actually being able to play or write music well. The other being your organisational capacity, and the final one being your interpersonal skills. And almost all, like the vast majority of musicians have 2 of those 3, and that's like plenty to get you by. Like you can name a lot of people off the top of your head who fit they're really killing musicians, they're really lovely, but they have no organizational stuff together whatsoever. That's a massive amount of people in the jazz scene in particular.
Yeah.
And you can think of a lot of people who, you know, are very good at music, are very organized, but they're a bit of an arsehole. But there's still a place for them in the scene. If you need someone to turn up and do a good job, you know, you're still going to give them a call when you need them, you know. And then there's the people who are really lovely and really on it, but, you know, don't really have their stuff together. But it's like having them, having the company almost, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think I'd fallen into that category. I would have fallen into that category if I hadn't had people like Johnny and Rory showing me, or like leading an example, setting an example. It's not difficult. I think it's just doing it is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's difficult, just doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's not the barriers in place of how hard it is. It's the barriers in place of getting your head in the right space to be able to do it, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I find it funny to reflect on how few people really actually nail all 3 of those things. It's like far fewer people than you would expect, considering they're like basic human qualities and being able to play music. You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So the album's called Role Models. What's the thought behind that, and who are the role models in your head?
It's sort of it goes through friends, family, musicians I don't know, music that, well, like I was saying, the music that was new to me, people like Ambrose and Camilla, and I was seeing them as role models. Yeah, people that helped me get through my injury, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
Is
was quite.
is there a specific link between a certain role model and a specific tune on the album, or is it a more general?
There is a tune. The first track's called Role Models, but there isn't anything really specific about that track. Well, yeah, I guess each track has been written after listening to music that I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not well. I never copied it. It was just I'd be thinking a certain vibe, and I quite like that and quite like that. But yeah, a lot of it was inspired by new music from the past 5-10 years. But now I'm sort of going further back, or trying to anyway, which is something that I hadn't done as much, and hadn't realized why that's so important.
Yeah.
But I think now I'm getting to grips with why it is.
Beautiful. And so, I mean, within that, are you finding that your thoughts on potentially the next album, or the next set of music that you're either writing now or will be writing in the future, is going to be markedly different to the first album, or a natural progression?
I think it'll be a natural progression. It's going to be the same musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, yeah. I've started writing already for the next batch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, depending how long we're all locked away due to isolation measures, you might have the next 4 albums worth done by the end of it. By the end of
Yeah. Or maybe half an album at the time it takes me to write.
Yeah. But 6 months in my own room, I've got 2 new tunes.
Yeah. There's something, well, funny that I came across of just the process of writing. What happens sometimes is that I get a melody that I like. Oh, I like this melody. I put some chords underneath it. And put some chords underneath it. Actually, the melody kind of sucks a bit, but I like the chords. So I'm going to keep the chords and write another melody. And then I'll do that, and I think, I really like the melody, but now the chords kind of suck. And they just keep going round and round, and then you never have anything that you like.
Yeah. No, I've definitely fallen into that trap before as well. You're not alone in the cycle of self-hatred.
That's good.
Yeah, so fun. So you've picked out a tune for us from the album. This is a studio session, it's a studio video rather than a live video. This is a tune called Third Draft. Is that right?
No. Sorry.
That's what the video file is called. I was thinking this could be a. Why don't you?
I should have gone along with that. That would have been brilliant.
Yeah. Keep poker faced right away.
Yeah. Third Draft. Yes. It's all about writing a melody and
you wrote a melody, scrapped it, chord changes, scrapped it, did that 3 times, and then you finally got the tune.
Yeah. No, this is called Fall, FALL.
I prefer the original title.
Right. Yeah, me too, actually. I can't change it back now, but maybe the next album I'll have I call third draft.
Great. So this is fall, and then anything about this tune in particular you'd like to say before we take a listen?
It's I wanted to write something quite simple. Well, a lot of the music is quite simple, really. I wanted for it to be like something like a foundation where the musicians felt they could be free, not be tied to saying that this track there is like a specific thing that that they are tied to. But generally that I wanted there to be a lot of freedom in the music, and melodies wise, I like melodies that have either a hook or it's just singable, lyrical, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it's a beautiful tune, this one. I really enjoyed listening to it. So I think you've achieved what you set out to do, for sure. Does the fall in the title refer to like the American fall, the autumn, or is in like falling?
Yeah, I guess not the American, but it's not really I guess it felt like I don't know. It felt like it should be called that. There's no.
Okay.
I guess maybe it does. Maybe it does feel slightly autumnal as well.
Well, that is why I asked. It
because
does.
There was I don't know if you've seen the album. Seen the album. Heard the album In Common, Walter Smith's album.
No.
There was a track that this was inspired by,
right.
Called Ace. But the front cover is the band stood in a field, and it's like autumnal vibes going on. So it's funny that's just.
We'll say that's what that was all about.
Right. Yeah.
Great. So this is third draft. I mean, this is fall by the Dominic Ingham Quintet. Enjoy. Great. So that was Fall by Dom Ingham Quintet. So that's not the take that's on the album, is it? That's a
Yeah,
no, that is actually the album take.
yeah.
Beautiful, fantastic.
Oh, well, it's edited, but
It's the
uh,
album.
yeah. So I took the vibe solo out because it was awful. So no, um, I just wanted it to be a bit shorter for the video, really. So
Great. Yeah. Well, not great that you've taken the
yeah,
vibe.
finally you've realised that the mistake of putting a vibraphone in your band. No.
Yeah. So we had Johnny on last week, so he's got no right of reply. He's already had his podcast. You can say whatever you like now. It's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. See you later.
Talking into the ground. It's fine. So where did you record that? It's a beautiful setting.
We recorded it in St Mark's
Yeah.
Church, St Mark's Hamilton Terrace, which is in Maida Vale.
Great.
It's a beautiful church, and it was filmed by Sam Dye, who's a brilliant videographer, and he took some great photos as well after. The actual recording, the album recording, we did it in Livingston Studios, and Sonny Johns was the engineer.
Great.
I'm sort of amazed at how he makes such an amazing, the job that he does. Baffles me.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I wanted as well. And I'm not too great at explaining things, so I don't know how he got it.
To be honest, the whole world of production is a total like dark art to me. I'm always amazed at how things can be so different with one engineer to another from the same audio. It is absolutely like the extra musician in the band. It makes a massive difference on how everything comes out. So great.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to working with him some more.
Right.
Hopefully on the next one.
Yeah. And so this one is due, as we said earlier, to come out on the 12th of June. Is that right?
Yep.
Fantastic. And it's got some beautiful artwork on as well. Have you got a copy to hand for?
Yes, I do. Here we are.
Beautiful. It's a very somber-faced portrait. That.
Yeah. So it's actually a combination of two portraits.
Oh right.
It was I went over to Utrecht to get a beard now. To get a new chin rest because of the problems that I've been having. So this it was necessary for me to do this because it meant that it was personalized and that it would work for my. I've got quite a long neck. So whilst I was there, I stayed in a B&B, which is 2 minutes walk away from the conservatoire there. And the lady that ran the B&B had all these amazing pieces of art in her house. And I said, "Oh, who drew these?" And she said, "Oh, I did."
Wow.
Humbly. And I thought, whoa, that's. It was around the time that I was thinking about artwork for the album, and it sort of struck a chord with me. So whilst I was there for a couple of days, and I thought about it, and then at the end I said, "Would you be interested in doing the album artwork?"
Awesome.
Yeah. So I went back a few months later, and we had a session for a few hours, and she did 5 drawings. It was amazing, but quite surreal because I'd never done that before.
Yeah.
Just sit there and she asked me to time. Well, there's a clock there, and she said, "When 10 minutes is done, let me know," and then she just stops.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There's an artist that goes to a huge number of gigs in Manchester called Akin, and you can find him on social media as On a Shield art gallery, but one of his big things is speed drawing. And he comes in with he works with a lot of different mediums. Like some weeks he comes with charcoals, or some weeks he might come with paints, or sometimes with a laptop and a sketch pad and stuff like that. But he tends to like spread all of his materials like all around a table and make like a massive space for himself at the front of the gig. And it's the most like dynamic artwork you've ever seen in motion. He's like,
Right.
and
Wow.
the whole thing is trying to capture the energy of the performance. And so, we've got, don't know where they are. We've got a couple of his prints at home in this room somewhere, but
Right. Yeah.
I've actually did it, I think.
Yeah, I'd love to see.
So this is the only one from the gig. We've yet to get it mounted. You can see there.
Whoa.
But that's done. So you can see like it's all just like raw energy of lines, but you can see the kit and the musicians so clearly. And all of his paintings are like that. It's just like this. And you watch him do it, and it takes maybe like 30 seconds to do the whole drawing. It's just like mind blowing to watch the speed.
Right. So he does each player for 30 seconds and then he's done, or
he just keeps going. So like at the end of the gig, sometimes he lays out like 50 sketches, and then
he's turned around and done all the audience.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's actually another one. I don't know if you can see on the wall behind. I don't know how clear that is on the.
I can see half. It's quite faint actually. What is it?
There's another Manchester artist called Gideon Conn, who that was from back when we were at the Wonder Inn,
All right.
one of our previous venues. And he did a sketch of one of the bands there, and very kindly said we could keep the sketch afterwards. But it's the polar opposite. It's all just half line drawings. It's not even finished people. There's no faces. There's only outlines and impressions. But it's amazing because if you showed it to anyone on the Manchester scene, they'd be able to identify every one of the musicians really easily, even though there's like no facial detail. It's amazing. That's the polar opposite skill. Absolute minimalism.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. Amazing.
I'll have to look at some of his stuff.
Yeah, Gideon's good. I don't think he necessarily. He's also a musician himself. He does. He's a singer songwriter guy, but his artwork is incredible as well. Yeah. Anyway, that was another sidetrack. Sorry, but yeah. So album's coming out on 12th of June. You can pre-order via your website. I presume it will also be out on Bandcamp and all the usual places, will it?
Yeah.
So
and it'll be in, well, obviously not now. You can't go into stores, but it'll be in some stores.
Eventually. Yeah. So what are your plans for the future at the moment? Obviously, this is a good time to be able to take stock and plan ahead. And what's brewing for you at the moment?
Well, first of all, my main concern is just getting my body to a point where there's no sort of discomfort when I'm playing. So I've been doing quite a bit of yoga, getting into that.
Great.
I think basically just I need to get a bit stronger and a bit more flexible. And I'm doing Alexander technique as well. Yeah, so that's sort of been the focus because I haven't really had a chance to do well, to get better, to focus on that because I've been doing lots of other things and playing, and then I play and then it gets worse. So there's that to think about, and then writing for the next album. I'm excited to do that after having this space to feel a bit freer, I guess. As I said, it's nice to be back here in Wakefield. Sometimes London feels a bit claustrophobic. You know this. What
Yeah,
else am I doing?
I think
I've been. Sorry.
I was just going to say a huge number of people I think are finding the same thing, actually realizing almost how much damage you do to yourself by not allowing yourself enough real time off and rest for
Mm.
your head and your body as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely something that people will try and maybe balance their lives a bit better around, even when everything's back to normality.
Yeah.
We definitely shouldn't always just keep plowing on. It's good to take time out and take stock and feel rested and recovered and be much more productive for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess also reminding ourselves of what feels good, what's good for us to do regularly, like walking or reading,
Yeah.
like eating dinner at the table.
Eating dinner that's comprised of various nutrient types and not just
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I think especially during the if you've got a busy week of gigs, it's so easy to just eat exceptionally appallingly every day.
Yeah,
If you yeah yeah. I think everyone's going to be, I think a lot of people, the stereotype is you'll come out of, lockdown massively overweight. But I think for most gigging musicians, you'll come out more nourished than you have been for
yeah,
years.
yeah. I definitely feel a lot healthier at
Great.
the moment.
So I suppose that ties into the roundup question that I've been asking everyone, which is what are your hot tips for lockdown for anyone watching?
Um, I've really been getting into sitting in a room by myself and listening to an album.
Great. Yeah.
Um, I think
Active listening.
if that well, obviously it's not might not be possible for everyone, but uh, I'm always amazed at how a room transforms itself and how you feel in a room
Hmm.
uh, and how well, I don't know, it's just it's a great experience, I think, to
Yeah.
allow time to do that.
I think music has so easily become a background fixture uh, for people's lives rather than an active feature. And yeah, that's a beautiful thing to be able to take the time out to do. Because for me, most of my listening ends up happening in the car these days, which is great. But again, it's slightly background. Your head's still having to process, obviously, a lot of other stuff, even if it's subconscious routine.
Yeah,
To,
yeah.
to,
I just find myself getting annoyed if I'm well, like if you're in the car and then there's a driver does something that you don't like, or if I'm using like any technology uh, and listening and trying to like immerse myself in some music, I can't do that. Um, yeah, I think I haven't really given albums the time that they deserve before.
So are you doing a lot of revisiting albums that you have already listened to and finding new things in them, or is this
Um,
a new
yeah, well,
experience?
it was funny those album. I don't know if you were doing the the thing on Facebook that was your favorite albums, your 10 favorite
I've
albums.
been nominated for like 10 different challenges, and I've done absolutely zero of them so far. But
Okay.
they're all gonna come out at some point soon.
There was one where it was just four, uh, and uh, it's Bill Clinton sat with
Is
yeah
LP?
yeah yeah. Um, so I bought them. I was like, if these albums are going to be important, they're so important to me, and I need to. Well, first of all, give the money to the
All
musicians.
right. So these were your own choices. You realised you hadn't got a copy of them yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so I'd obviously listen to them on Spotify, and
Yeah.
um, yeah. There's one I have right here actually. Uh,
Terrible Animals. Oh yeah, great.
Unbelievable.
What about?
Yeah. So I've been, it's nice to put something on as well.
Yeah.
I just thought it would be good to have a physical copy. Yeah.
I definitely find that I listen to the same album repeatedly if I own it, and I listen to music far less repeatedly if I just stream it. Which means it never really enters your head as solidly, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, albums from your childhood are like massively ingrained on your psyche, aren't they? Because you've listened to the same album maybe like 50, 100, 200 times when you're a teenager. But I definitely think that's a part of people's musical education that's very easy to get watered down now because of obviously mass availability of anything you want to listen to. So yeah. Have you listened to the same album several times yet in your isolation chamber?
Well, I've got 500 of my albums, so I'm slowly getting through.
Listen to each one of them once. Like, but it could be your personalized spin. You know, you have to pay an extra £5 for one of the albums that's been personally listened to by the artist.
Right. Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
And then an extra £5 for signing it, and you're in business. You know.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
What was the question again? Sorry.
No. You've answered it. It was your hot tips for lockdown.
All right. Yeah.
If there's anything else as well, I know you said you've been doing yoga and all that sort of thing. So
yeah, that's been good to spend some time focusing on your body. It's something that I've never really done before.
Yeah.
And then you feel great.
Yeah. It sounds like you're having
Sorry?
I was going to say, it sounds like you're having an exceptionally mindful lockdown between silent album listening and yoga. That's a lot of very good headspace.
Yeah, well, I think it's sort of been like that, but then also the opposite as well, which is maybe why I've wanted to do the like as I was saying earlier about technology, I get quite frustrated with things that either are slow or I can't do. Like I've been trying to use Logic a bit, and that's been quite frustrating. If I'm not in the right headspace to do something, and then I go into something that I haven't, for example, if I'm recording something, say I'm not in the right headspace to do it, then I go and do it. I haven't practiced it, and I don't know how to use Logic. So I just go and do it, and then get really annoyed. It's great.
Okay. So your advice is to swing wildly between serene mindfulness and utter rage at your own incompetence.
Yeah,
because you've not built everything. Well, Dom, thanks so much for joining us for the podcast, and we look forward to having you back at the Whiskey Jar when we can finally do it all again.
I really look forward to. It's one of my favourite venues, so I really look forward to coming back.
We did pay you a lot to say that, so you know.
Yeah.
No, thanks so much, and it'll be great to finally have you here under your own project, doing your own stuff. And best of luck. Hope the album launch goes really well. Everyone go and check that out through all the usual channels, and we will see you again soon.
Thanks very much for having me.
Bye-bye. Hello again, Enki Jazz fans. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening to this week's podcast with Dom Ingham. Please go and check out Role Models once it's out on the 12th of June. Go and have a look up any teasers that are out there. There's some fantastic music going on, so please go and check that out. Also, please head over to our Patreon page, where you can find a whole host of concerts that some fabulous artists have recorded for us, as well as all of our other podcasts. Keep well, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Take care.